All right, all right. Okay, guys, here we are. We made it. Some technical difficulties, but just bear with us. With Hurricane Harvey, it doesn't seem like we're having a really strong internet connection, but we'll do the best that we can. Today, I've got my good friend Mark Limbaga out of the Philippines joining us today for our Hardstyle Live. Mark is a strength conditioning coach. He's a kettlebell instructor for Strong First. He was one of the first two, or maybe one of the only kettlebell instructors in the Philippines. He's been coaching since 2007. I know he also has trained the amateur Filipino Boxing Team. And he's got a wealth of knowledge to bring to you guys today. And Mark's going to be telling us a little bit about his story. So, Mark, thanks for jumping on. Thanks for hanging out with us for the next 30 minutes. Tell us a little bit about how all of this got started.
Heck, it's a great honor to be here, my friend. And I'm really happy to share my time here, even though it's a little past midnight. So just a little backstory. Yes, my name is Mark Limbaga. I am a Strong First Level 2. I am a Strong First bodyweight instructor as well. I also dabble in original strength. I am a level 2 coach with them. So yes, I work with it's actually a new name now. It's the Association of Boxing Alliances of the Philippines. So I am their strength and conditioning coach. I act as, quote unquote, the CTO, as Gab would jokingly say, of the Gravity Chamber. And I also am an independent with this gym, which is about roughly 10 miles from here. So yeah, I have been coaching since 2007, but I originally gotten via an internship. So that is the short end of the story. And I originally got into training because I was a skinny kid growing up. And I always wanted to be stronger. I always wanted to be able to hang with the boys, so to speak. So I was fond of basketball, as most Filipino males are. So I wanted to be able to play that. I didn't feel like I was getting. And then I also dabbled into some martial arts in my teenage years, and I also wanted to be able to hang. So it would be like who could kick the hardest, who could do the most push-ups. So that's basically the short story. I could go on and on about it, but that's basically how I got into training. And I got into working as a trainer because I was looking around because I was kind of bored, so to speak. I felt that everything here was limited. And the gym where I used to work, when they opened an internship and an apprenticeship for its members and for its scholars, I was one of the first to apply. And grace of God, I got in, and the rest is history. So that's basically how I started.
Nice. And so now you're a level 2 instructor for Strong First. You've been training with kettlebells now pretty extensively and pretty exclusively. Tell us about, like, how did you come across the kettlebell? So you were a skinny kid kind of growing up, and then you started just kind of venturing into, you know, like boxing and just kind of just as a kid, right? We naturally want to test our strength and, you know, so forth. So, like, how did you come across the kettlebell, and what was that journey like, transitioning into a kettlebell instructor?
Oh, so the kettlebell. Okay. I originally found Pavel, I believe that was sometime mid or late 2005 in, I think, an internet forum. I can't remember which one. And then they were talking about power to the people. So I was lucky enough that my aunt, who was visiting us year, was kind enough to buy me a copy. And so I really read through it. But then, of course, since some of the terms were new, the ideas were kind of counterintuitive to what most of us learned back then, the traditional, as we call it here, the bro split approach. So I tried it out for a bit, but I didn't really get into it extensively. Now, fast forward a few years, I bumped into a friend who was dabbling into kettlebell sport, and he made me try it, and it was very interesting for me. I found it very unique, and I liked it, but I felt that there was something that was wrong, in a sense, not really wrong with the approach, but it just wasn't really speaking to me at a level that I was hoping for. So me being as an acquaintance called me a voracious internet user, I decided to look at different approaches. So I looked at Steve Maxwell, if I remember it right, I looked at Mike Mahler, and for some reason, most of the RKC back then approaches kind of really spoke to me. Now, the funny thing is, when I was already doing contact sports, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a time, and mixed martial arts, some wrestling, we loved doing complexes as part of our conditioning routine. And that approach really, really resonated with me. So when I found out that you could do complexes with a kettlebell, that was what really got me hooked. And coincidentally, the program that really got me hooked into the kettlebell was Kettlebell Muscle by Jeff Newbern. So I said I wanted to see if I could add size to my body using kettlebells. And I started out with very minimal knowledge, of course, since there were no instructors in my country then. So surprisingly, even if I was probably doing it wrong, I added like 6 or 7 pounds to my frame and I was hooked. And fast forward 2 years later, 2012, I decided to attend my first certification, and that's basically it. Now I have, there's another guy who I met, Dexter, he's a level 1, he's here, and then I have 2 guys attending their certifications this year. Derek Vergara is going to Seoul in October, and Dennis Poldicar is going to the Taipei SFG in December. So that's basically it.
Nice.
And you were asking about boxing, because I got into boxing because I was cross-training with the national team since, I believe, 2009, on and off. And when their strength coach then stepped down and there was a vacancy, I was always there, so I decided to volunteer work. And the specifically the executive director, Mr. Ed Picson, saw I was helping out, and he graciously gave me an invitation if I wanted to join the team. So now I've been with the team since 2012.
Nice. So, I mean, that's pretty interesting. I mean, being able to train, work with some of the so Filipino boxing, excuse my boxing ignorance. I'm not very, I'm not too into boxing, but I do know that the Philippines has a rich boxing history, and it's just kind of something that's part of their culture. And not just boxing, but I think martial arts in general is a very big part of the Filipino culture, whether it's hand-to-hand combat or if it's boxing. I mean, it's so rich in martial arts. Tell us, what is that like? Give us a sneak peek behind the curtain of training, like some of the top boxers in the world, or prospects, or boxers that we never even heard of, that I'm sure you get to see on a daily basis. Like, what is that? I'm so intrigued. Like, give us a sneak peek behind the curtain. Like, what is the conditioning like? What are the athletes like? What has that experience been like?
Honestly, the first day of my when I was officially on the job, first week, all I did was observe, and I was seeing them doing ladder drills, medicine ball drills. I even attended sparring sessions just so I could really see what it was like. And I'll be honest, it was kind of humbling because you could see these athletes who came from very poor backgrounds, and then you know that this kid is probably at least number 7 or number 10 in the world. And then I handled all 3 teams: the senior men's team, women's team, and all of them were just really gifted athletes. And a lot of them were just hard workers. So to see these people, and it makes you realize, wow, you are in a position where you could actually help them reach their goals. And yeah, you said earlier that Philippines is rich in combat sport history. Yeah, I mean, we were colonized by Spain. We were under Spanish colony for 300 years, and about 50 years under Americans, not including the Japanese in World War II, and a 10-year interlude of Korea. With combat sports and combat arts, a lot of people are familiar with Filipino martial arts, Kali, stick fighting and knife fighting, and there are a lot more other forms, which like we have our local version of wrestling, and we also have Filipino kickboxing, which I also dabbled into for a time. So yeah, it's very interesting. Like when I started training some of the boxers, I originally just wanted to make them do movements better. So I just basically continued where their previous strength coach left off, teaching them making sure they're following some barbell work or doing their medicine ball. Just always just teaching them smaller details, since that could mean movement is much safer and the movement is delivered in a more efficient manner. Recently, I think it's been making its waves around the internet, the 21-second knockout of our newest recruit, the British, Filipino-British guy, John Marvin. I mean, that guy it was just amazing because I've seen guys like him, and you could really see how they develop every time you see them, and just being part of the journey is really humbling.
Nice. That's awesome. So now that you have these coaches, right, you're working with some of these top up and coming, athletes. You're now a kettlebell instructor. You've now had some new insight onto a different approach to strength training for athletes. Have you been incorporating some of the new stuff that you've learned from, like from the strong first teaching methodologies to power to the people, kettlebells? Like, have you incorporated any of that into their strength work?
Usually I incorporate a lot of bodyweight movements with them, since it's the most accessible, and since we are limited on equipment. And sometimes if, let's say, the women's team and the junior team train together and we don't have that, that'd be a good thing if you're training like 20 people and you will only have like 8 kettlebells and some of them can't handle certain weights yet. And I put emphasis on safety. So I usually teach a lot of linkage drills like we do, the hardstyle plank, the hanging leg raise, one-arm push-ups, the pistols. Those are always a staple, and a lot of movement that I learned from original strength. And I would also incorporate some of the few things I've learned from any workshop I've got to attend. And since part of my background is when I started out with my old gym, I was able to compete in a powerlifting meet. So I spent some time practicing those too. So for some of the athletes who are far off from competition, I would incorporate, let's say, like learning how to set up the deadlift properly, overhead pressing, some basic back squats. So it's always a mix, but focusing on the principles rather than the tools. And I would always have to take a look at the calendar. And sometimes I would often get suggestions from the coach in charge of a specific team. Like if I'm training the junior team and Coach Ronald Chavez is there, I would tell him, if you want me to put anything specific for this cycle, and he would give me his insights. Or For the men's team, Coach Nolito Velasco, I'd ask him his insights, or for the women's coach, Roel Velasco. So I always want to get involved with them and then explain to them what we're doing so they see the benefit, and it's always a two-way street. So I am helping them understand what I want to give the athletes, and then they tell me if they want something out of the session. So it's always good because I learn and they learn, and it's always cool to see whenever they give me feedback when I'm not around. Like, oh, we did the program that you gave us last time, and yeah, during the last competition, they expected. So now that's basically what I do. It's just constant communication and feedback.
Sure. Nice. So have you noticed, so between, now since you've been integrating some of the strong first principles, body weight, you've been incorporating some original strength stuff, have you noticed like one or two, particular drills that have had a tremendous carryover to either punching power or recovery or anything like that?
In terms of power, yeah, we often incorporate some medicine. We also incorporate other things like medicine ball drills. Sometimes we'd also incorporate like jump squats. Those things have been tried and tested. And one thing I don't want to do here with the program that has worked so far, because as we know, if it's working, why change it? And I just always focus on just making things better. So that's how I would train the boxers. With normal people, it's always usually establishing a safe entry point, a safe movement base, since they are not as gifted in terms of being able to pick up a movement quickly. So I train people who are regular desk jockeys or regular Joes and Janes way differently from how I would train the athletes. But I have certain students who are pretty good that they could probably keep up with the boxers in terms of picking up a movement quickly. Some could probably even be better. Like one of my students, Gabriel Rosales, you've worked with him, and that guy can pick up movements really quickly. So he would be like one of the exceptions for people who have regular jobs, but he could pick up movements quickly. So I would always have to assess where they are. Like even with athletes, even if they are athletes, we want to make sure they're moving safely. So there are athletes at times that they have difficulty doing a segmental roll. So I have to break it down into bite-sized segments so they can do it better. It's always about moving safely first, then picking up the pace. Because you don't want to make someone go full speed on a bicycle on their first day, right?
Right. Nice. Yeah, great. That's a great point. You mentioned Gabriel. Yeah, he's actually a natural athlete himself. I know he boxed for some time, and he picks up things really well. So definitely on that. So just to kind of touch on that, let's kind of switch gears just a little bit. And I mean, you've worked with everybody from high-end, boxers to everyday Joes that work a job. They want to feel better. They want to get stronger. You're integrating kettlebells. You're integrating body weight training. You're integrating the OS system. Tell us a little bit about like your training. What is a day in the life of Mark Limbaga's training? Like what are some of your key go-to exercises, things that have constantly worked? And then what are things that you've tried that haven't worked? That like, yeah, you know what, that really didn't work for me. I'm gonna try something else. So like, tell us a little bit about your training. What does your training look like? And tell us some of the things you that have worked and some things that haven't worked for you.
Okay, my own training right now. Usually, I train around between 7:30 or 8 in the morning. But if I wake up late and I don't have other errands to do, sometimes I train as late as 10 or 11 in the morning. Since little geographical location, my house where I am right now is about 1.5 to 2 miles from the gravity chamber. So that's about 5 minutes or less driving time. So I arrive there, and my training normally, it would depend on the day, but I would usually warm up using movement patterns such as segmental rolling, some crawling, some rocking. So this is found in original strength, but I believe it's also used in the ground first method. I think other systems use it as well. I'm not sure which ones, so I'm not gonna name names. I don't want to assume. And now I always use a lot of double bell work again, since my coach, I believe his name is Hector Gutierrez Jr., just suggested I go back to double bells. But yeah, so I'm right now doing I just finished off my last day of Plan 803A. I think that's in Kettlebell Workout Snacks. And I would often grease the groove with other movements I want to practice. And I would also do a lot of movement just to keep my body in check. So I don't want to have any loose screws, any rusty bolts and nuts, since even though I'm fairly healthy right now, it's always safe that you keep in check, because if you push yourself too hard, you often tend to break. And I learned that the hard way. I once pushed too hard because I did like 3 programs that were really intense back to back to back, and I hurt my shoulder really bad. This was in 2014, and it almost cost me back then. So I had to learn how to dial it down. So that's what I do now. Is I also sometimes if I am using the same weight, but I feel that I could go heavier, I would often have to tell myself not to. But what I would do is I would focus more on being mindful right now and seeing if I could actually focus on 1 or 2 details that I'm working on. So let's say I'm doing my double clean and press, and I could rep out, let's say 6 or 7 reps, but I would just follow the program. If the program has sets of 4, sets of 3, but what I would do is I would see if I could apply some of our principles, such as Dominanta, which is one of the principles I've been really digging in. So for the listeners now who are with us, or for those who are going to be listening in later, Dominanta is one of the principles taught at Strong First, which is applying tension without losing focus on the lift. I don't have my manual right now, but that's how I recall. So you make sure that the lift is good, but you're applying appropriate tension, so it's not shaky, it's not wobbly. So you know that even if the weight is something you technically own, you're actually looking to make it better. So by focusing on making what feels light feel heavy, eventually when you jump a pair up, it feels even lighter. So I remember I was jokingly commenting on Owen Chow, our good friend at Canada, Beast Tamer, and I said thank you since you posted the article of Chief SFG Brett Jones. Don't rush too heavy, make light work for you. And I actually managed to throw some wordplay, since my late grandfather would often take so long when it came to dressing up. So he would always tell my mom and my aunt and my uncle, dress me slowly for I am in a hurry. And then I jokingly told Brett, press me slowly for I am in a hurry. So that's basically it. And it's really good. I mean, as we say, strength is a skill, and it's always good to dial down, dial back, and to make.
Nice. Yeah, you touched on Dominanta. For those that aren't familiar with it, is Dominanta is, Mark hit it right on the head. It's basically focusing on the lift itself, not focusing on the weight, but focusing on the muscles, being able to generate tension by only focusing on the muscles and to achieve that task, whether it's a push-up, a one-arm push-up, a deadlift, a press, whatever it may be. So that's definitely actually a pretty high-end skill to be able to really dial in and focus on that. But it really helps you to focus on the execution and the musculature executing the lift. So that's awesome. Mark, so tell us, like, what are some future projects that you have going on? I know you've been working with a couple of prospective instructors. Like, what are some things that you're, excited about the future? Like, I know you've got many things going on. You got, a couple of students that are going to become SFG soon. Like, what are some things you're focusing on for the future?
In the near future, well, number one, I am just making sure my students are in check, because I want them to perform really well. And last year when I assisted at the SFG Level 2 in Seoul, Master SFG John Engum gave us a challenge. He said to everyone in the room, he said, we should produce students who are better than us. And I was actually telling my students on separate occasions that you guys have been helping me fulfill the mission, since you guys are way, way, way more prepared than I ever was when I was going to go into my level 1. So I was telling them my own struggles and where I was. So I said I'm very excited to see that they're getting really good. In terms of projects, well, we're just trying to grow our all the gyms where I teach at. We're trying to just grow it, so make it more visible, both on social media and wherever. And I'm also going to be doing a few workshops this year. Actually, tomorrow morning, I believe it will be 10 p.m. in your time frame. I'm teaching a mini workshop for this company. So I'm really excited to do that because I haven't done a workshop in a few months. And late this month, I believe I am doing another workshop with Martin Alido. Martin is an original strength level 2 coach. He's the senior coach for one of the branches of 360 Fitness, gym chain here. So that's the next, those are the projects that are on deck. And well, the biggest project I have is, I'm going to be a father soon. So my child is due around December 27, and it's a baby boy. So the next project is the wife and I have to decide what are we going to name him.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I tell you what, you're going to learn a whole new level of minimalism in your training here pretty soon. You're going to have to find that minimum effective dose to get your training in, because you will not be getting much sleep here in the next six months to a year. Man, but that's awesome, man.
And here,
go ahead.
Yeah, the challenge is also going to be, I am due to research next year. I'm going to probably have to figure out everything and really, as you said, maximize every second I get, since I'll be juggling training students, being a father, being a husband. So it's going to be fun. I know it's going to be a new chapter in my life, a new journey, but it's going to be a good learning experience. I think everyone, when you're thrown a new challenge, it often teaches you new lessons. And I believe that these challenges would probably also make me a better teacher down the road, which I'm really excited for, because whenever I learn something new and I get to share it with my students, if I can shorten the learning curve for them, I know that that's a win-win for everyone. So it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun. It's nothing that that you'll regret in any way. You'll definitely learn new lessons, which, you know, that you'll be able to pass down to not only your children, but also to your students as well. So that's great. So, Mark, do you have a website?
Okay, my website is marklimbagastrength.wordpress.com, which I apologize in advance since I have not updated it in the longest time. I am easily accessible via social media since I'm very active there. So people can look me up on Facebook. I am almost maxed out with my personal page, so please follow my professional dash Gear Strong, and you could also reach me through the gym, one of my gym's pages, the Gravity Chamber, and my Instagram handle is ML, which is the initials of my name, ML Gear Strong. It's also my handle on Twitter. So yeah, that's basically it. Anyone who has any questions or wants to reach out, wants to share any insights, I am more than happy to give a few words of wisdom or inspiration. So yeah, it's really great. I mean, technology is really powerful. Back then I felt like I was alone, but now it's like it's bridging gaps. Like you're over there in Texas, I'm here in the Philippines, and we probably have viewers who are in Europe or some viewers around Asia. So yeah, it's great. It's cool. And strength unites, as we say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're pretty much coming to the end of our time. For those of you that may just be tuning in, we've got Mark Limbaga here from the Philippines. Mark, thanks for staying up till after midnight to hang out with us for the last 30 minutes. So just to recap, Mark's got a rich history background working with professional athletes from boxing to everyday people that just want to get stronger. He is definitely a student of the game. He is constantly learning and always trying to absorb new information, new training techniques. That way he can bring more value to his students. So Mark, thanks for taking the time to meet with us. For those that want to kind of follow Mark and maybe kind of learn some new things from him, you can follow him on Instagram. You can follow him on Facebook. And then you can also follow him on his WordPress blog, that is marklimbagastrength.wordpress.com. But I'm pretty sure that they can reach out to you by instant messenger or anything like that. So, Mark, thanks for tuning in. And one little thing that Mark's been doing a couple of times is it's kind of like Facebook Live, but it's just audio only. So it's really cool. He has some little words of wisdom that he, from time to time that he drops in. So as soon as you see that pop up, I highly encourage you to tune into that, because Mark always has some really good. I learn something new every time I hear Mark speak. I always learn something new, man. Even if it's something I've heard before, he puts just a really good little spin or some kind of wisdom to it, and it really just kind of. I always learn something new when I hear hear from you, Mark. So thanks for doing what you're doing, man. Keep fighting the good fight, and. Hey guys, we're out of here. Thanks, Mark, again for staying up past midnight to hang out with everybody here in the States.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Hector. The least I could do, as we say, just pay it forward. And whoever's going to be listening to this and whoever's listening right now, thank you so much. And I'm probably hoping that I don't that I crash soon, because I'm going to be amped for at least 10 minutes more. Because every time I get to talk to strong friends, strong colleagues, I am always excited. So yeah, and yeah, the Facebook audio live thing, it's a really cool feature. If you don't want to have a camera in front of you and you just want to voice out some thoughts, some opinions of yours, it's a great feature. Technology, if it's used properly, is a very powerful tool. So yeah, thanks everyone. This was awesome. Even though the connection is kind of choppy, it wasn't cooperating. We are still making it happen.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks to everybody for hanging out and for kind of staying patient with us. Internet doesn't seem to be strong with the current conditions that we have, but we made it work. We showed up. Everything seems to be working just fine. That's pretty much it, guys. We're out of here. We're a few minutes over, but thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Friday for our next rendition of Hardstyle Live. Bye, guys.